Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Skeleton Crew breakdown. I want to start by wishing you a very happy new year 2025. And kicking off a brand new annum, we just got Skeleton Crew episode 6, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Such a fun episode. It was such a dramatic change of pace, but super emotional and so well written. As I predicted a couple of days ago, this episode is character focused, KB focused. And we finally learned what is the situation with her cybernetics and her medical requirements. And as always guys, there were tons of Easter eggs, fun things you might have missed, callbacks, references, you name it. We're gonna get into all of that. So the episode is titled Zero Friends Again, but because by the end of the episode the children do end up friends again, I've seen a couple of theories floating around, debating who this is in reference to. I think it relates to Jod. Now that he's betrayed the children, he has zero friends again. Right from the word go, the episode pays homage to both The Empire Strikes Back and The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. The kids going down the trapdoor chute was very reminiscent of Luke going down the trash chute on Bespin, but the reason I mentioned The Grinch first is Bryce Dallas Howard's dad, Ron Howard, was the director of the classic Christmas movie. I think she's honouring him with this reference. We do have a plethora of other Easter eggs and references later in the video, but the crux of the first half concerns the dynamic between the kids. This episode is going to resonate with so many people. I've already seen some incredibly touching reactions, KB's dialogue being very important and poignant, and a message of belonging, which says, we keep abilities and strengths in mind to move forward, and we create something better together as a team. Because Skeleton Crew just transformed this group of friends into a family, one with greater empathy and understanding. And this level of humanization is the episode's greatest strength, developing close bonds between characters who hadn't really interacted on this level before. For instance, Wim and KB. Up until this moment where Wim had to save KB's life, the reason the kids stuck together was just out of necessity. They're all from Atatin, they crossed the barrier, they found themselves in the Onyx Cinder, they didn't know what to do. Fern became captain, and they worked together, but they weren't really friends. KB and Fern were friends, Wim and Neil were friends, but there was a friction between the boys and the girls. And this episode did something genius. It answered the question, what if you take Wim and you put him with KB? What if you take Neil and put him with Fern? How do the feelings of those characters towards one another change when they're put in a situation that is basically life or death? And it was done geniusly. The scene was packed with so much meaningful character development and exposure that was done in such a way that we finally fully understand the character of KB. We know that once upon a time she was in an accident, and now she relies on orgs, cybernetic augmentations. Fern knew about them, but didn't know the full extent of her friend's condition, and that is what frustrated KB in the first place. Since her accident, we know her mums are worried about her, but from KB's perspective, Fern, her best friend, isn't always understanding that she can't do things the way she used to, so she always feels pressured to keep up with Fern's pace. And while we understand KB's perspective, there is a silver lining to the way Fern deals with it, because I think Fern deep down knows KB has special requirements, but at the end of the day means well, and is just, I think, trying to make her friend feel like a normal kid, even if it didn't always come across that way. So, Wim was able to make a new microfuse for her resonator housing, and in the process, as acknowledged in KB's thanks, he was able to feel like a Jedi, because he saved someone's life. They all come together at the end, after a few funny encounters with trash crabs. There was a very Wall-E feel to the entire episode, the moving about of garbage on Lanupa, and at one stage, and I don't know if you caught this, the crabs kept repeating the line home. That was when the crabs were going to the mother crab. And they said the word home kind of like E.T., and it's very fitting because this show is very 80s and there's definitely been Spielberg influence. And the trash crabs were also a callback to Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, when Captain Jack Sparrow has to follow an army of desert crabs. But the kids notice the ship, the Onyx Cinder, is about to be destroyed and incinerated, and at the last minute, they're able to save it by pressing the one button SM-33 urged them not to. But when they do so, the Onyx Cinder emerges from and sheds its hull. That's right, when we heard the line clad with armor, this is what they were talking about. The Onyx Cinder lives to fight another day, and so do our heroes Wim, Neil, Fern, and KB. But now, my dear friends, we have to talk about Jod. After he escapes Ranald's lair on Lanupa, he's immediately greeted by, well, the hostess from the last episode, a group of guests, many of which belong to species we first saw in The Last Jedi on Canto Bight, and Gunter, played by Jaleel White, who works for Brutus, is there to arrest him. Another reference you might have missed, bilge rats, a classic pirate insult that's found its way into pop culture. And then the New Republic shows up. They're going to be very important in the next couple of episodes, and I think given the rumour there's going to be some kind of cameo before the end of the season, that could be in the form of Carson Tava. Who knows? None of the New Republic officers in the third episode on Kim's moon were familiar, but that could change. Anytime we see an X-Wing, there's a chance it's Captain Tava. He's appeared in Mando, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. So are they going to make it 4 for 4? Is he going to appear in all of them? Along with the rest of Adelphi Squadron, he's going to be in The Mandalorian and Grogu. But moving on, Jod is arrested and faces trial at the hands of Brutus. He's sentenced to a gruesome airlock death, thrown into space, but he's given a chance to talk. And given it's a life or death situation, I'm very surprised he didn't use the Force, but instead, he upheld his pirate identity as Silvo, the way they know him, and informed them about the Old Republic Mint on Atatin. It is not just a legend, and it seems that death by airlock is the Star Wars version of walk the plank. He appealed to their senses. Aren't you hungry? Aren't they tired scavenging for scraps? This could be their big payday, and he shows them proof, some of Wim's dataries. So now guys, the pirates are headed to Atatin. He's got the coordinates from Reynolds' lair on Lanupa, so we're building up to such a monumental climax. And my absolute favourite moment from this episode was hearing Jod sing the pirate shanty, the legend of Reynald and the Onyx Cinder, which they all seem to know, but like I said last week, I think he's long dead. So we now have a lot to look forward to. Are Jod's coordinates going to lead them to Atatin? Is the lightsaber going to feature again? Okay, so now guys, I just want to spitball some thoughts I had, especially in light of some criticism I'm seeing. This episode didn't resonate with everyone, and that's fine, but I have a theory as to why, now that we've had several live-action shows. This episode, to me, is the embodiment of the reason some fans would prefer entire seasons to drop at once, instead of the current model that exists of 1 episode a week. I do enjoy the speculation, the theorizing in between, but we have to ask the question, is it beneficial for the way the overall story is told in the moment? The reason I say this is because this episode was the perfect continuation from last week, the perfect feed into next week, but it's begging an immediate continuation. And so when all 8 episodes are out, we can fully appreciate an episode like this and where it sits in terms of the overall story. But with these Star Wars shows, week-to-week releases, the way discourse works, the way we tend to judge episodes as standalones, it's really hard in this instance, because here comes an episode that is so beautifully written, but I'm already seeing fans criticize it because it's generally less consequential. And you know, perhaps a major factor in this is how the episodes are just far too short. But this is not the first time we're having this conversation. It's not just been for Skeleton Crew, but across the board for so many other Star Wars shows. Whenever we get late into a season, just before I would say the penultimate episode, where things are building to a climax, where it's all about to go down, these episodes, which serve as a setup, often get a bad rap and are underappreciated until you can go back and do a full rewatch. But they utilize this episode, like I said, to tell a character-driven narrative that increases our investment in the stakes. Just as I always do, guys, I have tons more thoughts that I'm going to share in the week to come, but share yours in the comments down below. Did you enjoy this episode? It was so much fun, and Bryce Dallas Howard once again delivered something special. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.